So I've got a book that needs dry cleaning and pressing, and then at the very end, no matter how good it is, I'm not going to get it slabbed. All right, so today I have a sequence of videos, clips of me performing a dry clean and press on this book right here. This is Thor 339. This is the first appearance of Stormbreaker, Beta Ray Bill's hammer, right at the beginning of Walt Simonson's prolific run on Thor. And I grabbed this book in very fine condition from Mile High Comics, and I graded it as a 9.0, and I felt like it could use a dry clean and press. So in this sequence of clips, you're going to see me go through the dry cleaning process, look at some of the materials that I used, why I used some materials in some parts of the book, and then I'll just run it through my standard heat press process at the very end. And then lastly, you're going to see kind of a surprise. It certainly surprised me, where it made me wonder if after all the work I put into this book, it's something that I want to send off for grading and get it permanently encased in a slab, in a plastic slab, sort of entombed for eternity. And it definitely made me question whether or not I would even want to do that with this specific book right here. So enjoy the clips. Please stay to the end to see the surprise. I think you'll enjoy it. I certainly, it was a welcome. It was a good thing. So here we go. This is my dry cleaning and pressing of Thor 339. All right, so I have some new toys, I guess, or materials to use to dry clean this book. We're going to get rid of this glare here in a second. I'm going to work on Thor 339. This is a book that I talked about in a recent Mile High Comics purchase where I bought this book listed in very fine condition. And I graded it, and I gave it a 9.0 CP, which for me that means clean and press, not just press. So I'm going to walk you through a little bit of the dry cleaning steps that I'm going to take on this book. Now, one of the first things I bought was a package of these kneaded erasers, and I'll show you why the kneaded erasers are cool. They're very similar to a popular product there that I'm about to unbag and use for the first time, which is Absorine, and it's like a putty. And you live and learn. Not this book, but another book. I was using a plastic or kind of wax eraser and was just erasing, and noticed a little bit of dirt in the logo, and erased it and picked up the eraser and noticed that I was getting the ink off of the book, and basically it ruined the cover because I had erased right in the ink. With kneaded erasers, and more so with Absorine, you can still pick up the dirt without affecting the ink on the book. So let me get this book out of the bag and board, and then I'll show you kind of what I want to clean up. All right, so the nice thing about this book is that it's not going to take much. You can see, again, this was listed in very fine. So I'm just going to go over the book pretty quickly, but I was very impressed. Obviously, we've got some spine ticking or ticking near the spine as we move the light, and I always recommend a great strong overhead light because head-on book looks great. Move the light in and you can see the creases, and that's where the press is going to help get those out. And those are not color breaking. They're just slight creases and dents along the spine, but you can see the spine looks really sharp. Again, those preventing it being a 9/8 right now for sure, but nothing that a press can't take care of. So again, a little bit right there as well. Now the front looks, I think, clean, especially right here as we zoom in on Stormbreaker. All of that looks really good. I really wouldn't do anything from a dry cleaning perspective to the front of this book, but it was on the back that I noticed that some additional attention can be given, and particularly up and down the spine. And this is really the most common area, I would say, that you find dirt and things that could be dry cleaned. So up and down right here is pretty dirty. Really up and down the spine, I would probably go over. It's certainly like a yellowish copy. And again, I'll take a look and see if that line right there is ink or it can come up. But I really feel like this book could max out at 9.6 if I could get the spine all cleaned up nice. There is a bit of kind of like a paper crunching or something happening right there. That typically does not come out in a press that I have found. It's hard to get that out. It looks like a little insect of some kind or bug, but that's just kind of the way it is. And that sort of issue right there is probably going to come out in the press anyway. But my plan is to kind of go up and down the edge and clean it up with the Absorbine and the kneaded eraser. And I will walk you through that process and do a little before and after. So here we go with the dry cleaning. All right, so here we go. I have some of my other supplies. We've got latex gloves, so I'll put those on. And I'll always use the latex gloves when working with the book and Absorbine. I have been using this. This is an Absorbine sponge, and I don't find, I mean, you see that it does have some dirt here on the sponge, but I haven't really seen the difference using the sponge. What I use this for is if there's anything, any little crumbs or anything left from an eraser, then what I'll do is I will wipe the book with the sponge like that. You can kind of go over the book just like that, just lightly, if you want to kind of, at the very end, give it a little bit of an extra shine. So I want to first start with one of the kneaded erasers. And I bought a pack of 4. And this comes in a little plastic case like this. And you can find them at any art store. I just bought these. It was like $5 for the pack of 4. Take it out of the plastic here. And again, it's a little sticky, but totally malleable here. And so what I do is kind of just get it to a point where I can kind of grip it and use my thumb and kind of push it out a little bit. And it is just a touch sticky. And again, this is great for just changing. It's actually sticking to the gloves a little bit. You can kind of change the shape of the eraser to kind of meet your needs. Okay, so right here I want to start in the book. This is right here next to this staple. You can see quite a bit of dirt in here. Right. So this is the area that I want to work on right in here. And again, what I try to do is just sort of brush the book with the eraser. And what I do is I take my index finger and my thumb and I press down on the book, and as I push down, I push my fingers away to almost as if I'm trying to stretch the paper out to grip the book. The reason I do that is because if I'm just putting my hand down and it's not enough pressure and I move back and forth, it can catch the page and then it creates a crease, which I've done, and it's almost a permanent crease. So again, I try and like push the page away if possible, and then just start to kind of put a little pressure and begin to erase. Now this, this is interesting. I may actually take the gloves off for this exercise because it seems to be sticking to the gloves. So I'll just use my bare hands here and kind of just, again, just the great thing at it being kneaded is you can kind of just push it down. It's actually better without the gloves. So already just with this eraser alone, I can already see a tremendous amount of difference. And I'm just trying to stay in the white areas of the page. So I'll give you a little bit of a closer look. Let's see how, here we go. So right in there by the staple, you can already see it's cleaner. Hopefully you can. The next part is I'm going to work right around Popeye down here in the corner. Just make sure I get all of that clean. And then I'll try a little bit with the absorbing as well. But that's what when I saw this book, I thought, boy, this is going to be a relatively easy exercise to clean this one up. And I don't put too much pressure down with the eraser. I'm just sort of, like I said, I'm just kind of brushing it. I'm putting the pressure with my left hand to make sure I don't catch the page. And then anytime you're working with the spine or you never want to go in this direction. Always want to go this way so that the eraser is sort of falling off the page and you never want to catch it and introduce a tear. So I'm not going to do too much in here because there is some ink. I'm just rubbing this over the white or blank areas of the book. I'm going to put a little extra pressure in here. It's already looking great. Up in here, it's going to be a pretty dramatic change. So I will save some areas down at the bottom for the Absarine. But I think I can get pretty far with just the kneaded eraser. I don't want to bring in the Absarine unless I absolutely need to. No pun intended. So let's just continue along the spine. And I'll just keep massaging the eraser as it changes shape as we work. And I can already, it's a dramatic difference already. So that's the bottom half, and there's the top half. Look just how dirty it is compared. So this is really all it takes. Now, some people will use a pencil eraser, and that's fine, or a wax or a plastic eraser. I've just, I have found more luck with the kneaded because I feel like there's a subtle streaking that happens with the wax or plastic. And when I say plastic, you can use a white eraser. It's kind of those erasers you'd get at school and you'd put on top of your pencil. Some people use those as well. You know, it's kind of whatever you're comfortable with, but I have found that these kneaded erasers are awesome. And what I like, again, is not only can you change the shape, but it almost sticks a little bit. Like I feel like it's sticking to the book and picking up the dirt, peeling the dirt away. Whereas with the wax or plastic erasers, you're grinding on the book. And I just don't, I feel like I'm probably damaging it or creating other tiny imperfections without even realizing it. So this is going to be a little tricky just because there is the ink here and I want to stay away from this black line. So this is kind of the moment of truth if I can get all of this out. But this is where I may go back with the Absarine because I don't want to start erasing the black line and turn it gray. So I'm kind of making almost like a little point with the eraser and then just rubbing it. But even that, if it gets too thin, it starts to fold over. So I'm going to apply a little bit of extra pressure to work on that spot right there. It's actually starting to break apart as I move, so it is working. There we go. There's a bit more coming off. But again, just trying to be mindful. And this doesn't seem to pick up the ink like the plastic eraser does either. I went pretty much right over the edge of that cloud right in here, and it still looks pretty good. So not bad. The only thing I will say with the kneaded eraser is it's not holding together. Like, I almost want to just mash it. It really is like silly putty, and it is working. But what ends up happening is it gets flat real quick. So then I wonder if almost like roll it this way and kind of roll it off the book, because it is sticky. So you can hear it almost like sticking to the book. And I'll just roll it off the spine. Like so. So again, instead of rubbing endlessly and grinding on the dirt of the book, I'm just sort of rolling it off. Yeah. So let's take a look at where we're at. So how about that? Let's see, there we go. Okay, so there. Pretty good. So I'm pretty happy with that. That looks great. That was one of the main reasons that I marked the book. And I don't think I said this at the... Yeah, I did. It's a 9.0, I think I gave it. And the this paper crunch here at the top, and then some of the spine damage and things like that. Again, all of that could be pressed, but without the press, I felt like that was probably knocking it into the 9.4, 9.2 range. And then just in general, I thought the fact that it was so dirty was probably why I moved it into the 9 range. So I'll just continue here. We have the luxury of working with some of these like open spaces to erase. I'm having a hard time keeping the kneaded eraser together without it folding. So I'm just kind of rubbing it a few times against the book and then just grabbing it again and again, working this direction off the page, never in that direction because you'll go like that and catch it and tear it. So just kind of moving it away. And then with this hand, again, just spreading the pages out. So now this is something I'm going to try with a kneaded eraser. I'll have to put a little extra pressure, but I'm pretty sure this is an ink stain or an ink color rub of some kind. And I just can't quite get the catch. Now I do have an older kneaded eraser, and this one was almost more like clay. And I can actually hold this one a little bit better and actually erase without it changing too much shape. But I have a feeling this is just, it's just color rub. It is coming out a little bit, so it's not bad. But I have to be careful with this older kneaded eraser. It's a bit worn and used because, again, I don't want to pull up any of the ink. And the more I do that, now it is coming up just barely. Now this is where, okay, so if you're asking about that wax or plastic eraser and it pulling up ink, this is a good opportunity to use that. So let me get it. Okay, and so this is what I was talking about. High polymer eraser from Pentel. Just kind of, again, you'd get it in any sort of art kit. What I don't like about this with the fact that it's pulling up ink, it also just makes a mess. So I always look at the eraser and just make sure it's generally white so that I can see what edge I want to use. So I would probably use this edge, and then if it's not, I need to clean it, I just kind of do that. But you can see even here, this is where I take the absorbing eraser and just clean off my workspace. It tends to also grab these little pieces of the eraser. So again, I'll be very careful here, and even so much so as to add a backing board here as well, just to make sure that I'm not erasing any part of the ink other than this particular piece that I want to get rid of. And so I'll just do this and then press really hard with my left hand. So I'm actually applying quite a bit of pressure here. And I think it's gone. So this is where pulling up ink off of the page is a good idea. But it creates such a mess. So it has to be in very specific spots like that line of color rub. And if we move those pieces of the eraser off, that line is gone right there. So that's where this still comes in handy, but I try to avoid using it unless I get a little bit of a stubborn piece of ink like that. So the last piece I want to do is still go back around the bottom here where there's a lot of ink, and I certainly don't want to use this eraser. And I want to try out the Absorine. Okay, so this is my first time working with Absorine, and I bought this off of Amazon, where all great things are purchased. It's also where I found those kneaded erasers. Most of this stuff is pretty cheap, and it's going to last you not quite forever, but you're probably not going to replace any of this. So this is it's a minimal investment if you're going, especially if you're going to do this to help preserve and improve the quality of your books. It's such a minimal investment. So this is really, it's another malleable substance, and you're going to grab kind of about the same amount that you would in that kneaded eraser and just make a ball or a roll out of it like so. It smells kind of funky. And then what I'm going to do is find a spot here where I knew there was a little dirt, but I also wanted to preserve the ink. And I like to use the backing board, just another layer of protection on the book, and then just kind of roll over the areas. And you can also rub a little bit like that. And I'm trying to find a spot here where we can see a little bit of a before and after. I'll continue to work this corner. Okay, so let's go to this edge. So right in here, I definitely see some dirt, and I'm going to kind of roll it like that, and then just see if I can go up and down the edge here. So I'm going to switch out this board because it's getting the Absorine all over it, and go with a plastic or a board with the bag on it. I'm not seeing the difference quite yet by rolling it, and I'm going to try rubbing instead. Yeah, it actually almost like the brushing. Same thing with the kneaded eraser though. I always have to kind of go back, and maybe I don't have enough. But I almost want to create my own malleable sponge with it that's not going to allow me to put my finger all the way through and then just sort of rub. And again, it's not a ton of pressure here. That's a nice sound. Almost until my thumb goes through it. Yeah. So you could see here it's leaving a little bit of the Absirine on the book, so I'm going to use the sponge to kind of wipe it off. And that's really the only thing I've found the sponge useful for. It's really not good for getting the dirt or the grime off the book, but almost just wiping away any of the remnants of the eraser or in this case the Absirine. So it's definitely working, but it's more of an effort to use the Absirine than it is the kneaded erasers. So the kneaded erasers worked great. There's just, you want to bring in the Absirine, like I am, when you need to go over parts of the book that has ink on it, right? So in this case, we've got that copyright text down here, and I don't want to lift the copyright text off, and I'm trying to get, and it's definitely cleaning it up, that's for sure. And then kind of moving back to where Popeye is right in here. And going over that and trying to make sure that I don't lift off any of the ink around him. Like so. So that looks really good. And again, just to, like, right in there I see these little pink dots. And I'll take my sponge and just go over it and wipe away from the edge and a pretty far distance away from the book so that I get all of it off. So there's no little pieces, because you don't want any of those pieces of Absirine going into the press. So let me take a look at it, see if there's any other spots on the book that I would want to clean. Because the pressing you want to do last. Yeah, I think right in here, there's probably just some little spots that I'd want to get off, but it looks really good. But I think I want to go back to the eraser. I feel like I'm getting more benefit out of that than anything. I'm going to put this back down. And again, it's going to be close, but I'm going to try to stay away from any of the pieces of the book where there's ink. You don't want to smear the ink, pull the ink off the page, and so on. But yeah, that looks good. I like that. I think the bottom might be done a little bit here under the foot. Yep, that's looking good. And it is very sticky, and it is picking the page up. You just kind of have to be very mindful. This is where you're mixing art, skill, and science. And the art part is really kind of, I would say, more just experience and a feel for how much pressure you want to put on the book with your left hand and how much you actually want to apply while erasing. I have vigorously erased color off of a book and the book is ruined, and I have sat here for hours just lightly scrubbing with an eraser and nothing happens, and you kind of have to find that middle ground. And a lot of times too, it's just going over the book multiple times until you're satisfied with it. And again, part of the art is, you're never going to be finished cleaning a book. You're just going to be done with it. I think that there needs to be a little bit of cleanup right up in here, I think. So I'm going to work on that. And this is where you have the option too, because the sort of, I would say, like the pencil eraser or your wax or plastic eraser is going to work well here. Again, it just creates more of a mess. But you could certainly just kind of go up and down this edge. And it'll do the job and work well. It just, like I said, it just creates a real mess. And it's hard to get like tight in close to the edge without erasing some of the ink. So you have to be really careful and understand where that eraser is touching the page. Not too bad. And then I don't even think I need to go all the way up and down. Something right there on the edge. And then this corner definitely needs a little bit of work. That might be it. So yeah, you never want to take this plastic eraser over ink. Never. You will permanently damage the book. And you'll make it very obvious to a professional grader that the book was corrected in some way. So you have to kind of battle with the perfectionist in you as far as what you think. How much time you want to spend with a book. I think right in here by this staple, oops, I'm actually going to clean this up first, get all of this out of here. Just cleaning up the workspace a little. And that's the other thing, as you start to push down on a book, you don't want any of these little eraser pieces. Like, you want the freedom to make a mess, but you have to kind of clean up as you go so that you don't introduce new issues. It's going to take you even longer to clean. So what I was going to say is right in here, I'm not satisfied completely with the spine. It looks really good, but I think I can get it a little bit better. But I'm also scared that I'm going to pick up the ink. So I'm trying to use the backing board as a base. Just stay away from that line. I think that's a little better. And then just for good measure, I'll go back with the Absarine. So this is the problem. You end up using this pencil eraser and it's just so messy. But it works. So you're just kind of going back and forth between erasing and cleaning the workspace. So I'm going to take a break from that. And then just kind of go over it one more time. Right. So yeah, just kind of doing this. I would say that the Absarine, again, that there's a couple of uses for me for this. Certainly going over lighter ink areas that have some dirt. I think that that's a great use. So you don't want to pull up the ink. And then kind of like your last bit of shine and cleanup that you want to put on the book, like I'm doing now. I don't know if I would recommend it as like the first line of defense for dirt, but like here's a good example right in here. That's going to be hard to get into with an eraser without pulling up some of the ink. So I'll just kind of rub on it a little bit and see if I can do a little bit of almost wiping with my thumb. And this is what I'm talking about, like right in here. You can start to see, that's where my glove is starting to push through, like if I were to push all the way through. So before that gets to that point, I'll just pick it up, put it back into that ball, and then push my thumb into it and just start wiping again until I feel like it's my glove wiping on the book. But even then, it's pretty good. It's holding together and kind of just wiping with my thumb. And we're almost there. All right, one last little bit around the lettering. And then I think we should be good. And again, what I'm doing, the motion is I'm going on the book until I'm off, and then I pick my hand up and come back and go back on and pick, right? So it's like this motion rather than this, because if you go this way, you're going to catch the edge of the page. Right, so it's this and up and over, like so. So I think that's pretty good. Let me take one last look and see. And one last brush with the Epserine eraser. So I'll give it one last brush. Okay, so this is the review of the book after I dry cleaned it, and in particular, the area that I'm looking at is down in here, which I think looks much cleaner, much whiter, more natural. You want to make sure you do all of this before you press the book. The pressing should be the final step in the process. So here's that spine, cleaned up all nice. Super white, super clean. I did catch a little bit of the page right up in there as I was saying not to, so that's where that fold is now introduced, but I'm hoping that the press takes care of all of that. Nothing I can do about that, that crunch right in there. But yeah, it looks super strong. So this book's going to go into the press, and we will see how it turns out, and see what grade this book gets when it comes out of the press. So that's it. That was the end of the dry cleaning exercise, and time for the heat press. All right, welcome back. So this book has been in the press for about 6 hours, I would say. I cooked this book at 165 degrees for 15 minutes and then let it sit here in the cold press for 6 hours. Let's see how the book turned out. Take off my top plate, the SRP paper and magazine backing board. And let's take a look. Just slide the whole thing off and move it over here. Let's see. So the front looked pretty good, but if you remember right, as we were moving the light back and forth in the book, we were picking up those, the spine creases and defects, and it looks pretty good. So I'm trying to angle it in there. I still see a little bit. Let's maybe shine it that way. Right there, right by the Marvel Comics group, by the PN group, there's a little bit of a spine tick there, but it's not bad. So yeah, I don't see any of the, move it down a little bit. Let's see, get it in the light. There we go. That's better light, right? Yeah, so I still see that crease. That was what I was talking about. So that one really, as you shine and shift the light, you see it there. And it's not, I mean, it's just slightly color breaking. And then right in there, there's a little something. Yeah, so it didn't quite get all of those out the way I would have liked. Let me turn the book over. So for this, yeah, there's just some, like I said, that paper thing, that just stays in there. That's not coming out, but it's a pretty solid copy, I would say. It's definitely not perfect, but much, much cleaner, much more vibrant now that those borders are white. And there you can see in the spine. I don't know. Let me get this out of the sandwich and take a little bit of a closer look before I give it my final grade. All right, so I took this out of the sandwich, and you're not going to believe this. This is the first time this has happened to me. So I was just holding the book up and taking a look and just going, yeah, looks okay. I don't know. I'm still concerned about up there. Let me just see what the inside looks like. Boom. Walt Simonson's signature on the first page right there. Look at that. That's awesome. Love that. And I've always heard those stories of people buying books and then they open it and it's Stan Lee's signature, Jack Kirby's signature, or something like that. So one of my favorite artists of all time, Walt Simonson, right there signing. I gotta look at that again. That's so awesome. So I'm gonna assume that was legit, amazing, super cool. So that book was very fine sitting at Mile High Comics. I got it at a steep discount, pressed it up. And now, frankly, I don't really care what grade it gets. I was going to say, is it a 9.6? Is it a 9.8? I don't really know or care at this point. But I guess just to kind of finish off the experiment, I'll show you the edge here out of the sandwich. It looks pretty cool. It's a solid high-grade copy. Let's just say 9.6 for fun, right? How about that? So there you go. There is a book that I purchased from Mile High Comics as a very fine. And I originally graded the book as a 9.0, as a clean and press candidate. And I think with my dry cleaning and quick press with the heat, well, not a quick press, but a standard heat press, I moved this book from a 9 up to a 9.6. And I love it. So that's super cool. Thank you for watching. Happy collecting, and see you next time.